Okay.
I mean, wasn't it one of those good?
So welcome, everyone. My name is Ricardo. As you know, I went to the Holy Land for the first time, May 26th to June 6th or so. And it was a pilgrimage that was sponsored through Grace Cathedral in San Francisco. One of the priests there, who I think has been there for 30 years, the Reverend Mark Stanger, recently retired, and he had led pilgrimages to the Holy Land for 20 years. And so he wanted to do one last one, sort of like, you know, those movies where the one last crime and then you retired. So there were only actually 10 of us plus Mark who went over, and I'm giving you all this preface now so I don't forget later. The group that he uses, the tourist place, is called Qumri Pilgrimages, Qumri, started by Iyad Qumri 25 years ago. And Iyad, you'll see at the beginning of the photos, he was our guide for about a day and a half, and then his son Rami took over. Rami Qumri. Now I know that Father Ernest has gone a number of times, and he uses a different agency, and so there are all kinds of things that you can do and ways to go. This was mine. Now what I did was I posted on Facebook pretty darn thoroughly over the time I was there and after. The last post was like 2 days ago because it takes you a while. And they're very thorough, but I was sort of too lazy to make a PowerPoint presentation out of it. So this is my Facebook posts. And so all the photos I posted are there, but I'm going to skim through some of them because there's just too many. Now, I posted, I don't know if I already said this, 14 posts. So we're going to do 7 today and 7 next week. And that sounds daunting. And you know what? It is. So, you know, in the spirit of, you know, I just want to show you what happened. I kind of want you to ask questions, but I don't want to go down too many pathways because I do want to show you the pics. This will also be recorded. We can talk later. We can come back next week. Last time when I did this, I could see that people, well-meaning, lovely people, were a little glazed over. So I expect that with you. And just know that it's okay. But, you know, just enjoy yourself or go and know that there's a recording. Okay. The other thing is, because it's a recording, don't shout out things like swear words. You can't. I'm looking at you, Jen and Susan. Nobody left out. So, and I have to stay at my laptop because we're recording through Zoom. It's a long story. So, I will sit there even though I'm talking with you. And you can look at the screen because everything is up there that you'll need. So first of all, I call to your attention the smaller map with the map of all of Israel and the occupied territories. I also have a bit of a script that I'm going to juggle, so you'll get some quotes. So let me see if I can find that here. There it is. Oh, that's a little big. So that's kind of the shape of Israel. It's got it's a little angular at the bottom. We're pretty much interested in the West Bank and Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and up into Nazareth. So I'm showing you on the screen, but also, so these Nazareth in the north, this is all the West Bank. Here's Jerusalem, and Jerusalem's half in the West Bank too, right? It's East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem. So that is to situate yourself. Notice that Bethlehem is in the West Bank, and I'll be talking about that today, as well as Jericho, which I will talk about today. And of course, Jerusalem here and the little crevice. So that's map number 1. Next, I ask you to turn to one of the big maps, the color one with all of the, well, print and writing and colors on it. Make it so that the word Jordan is on the right side as it's going up. And I'll put it on the screen as well. This is, let's see here. Hey, here we go. So just to situate you, you saw how Israel is shaped.
And so we're only going as far as partway through the Dead Sea. So I want you to look at the north. You see the Sea of Galilee up here at the top of your map? Kind of top right. So that's the Sea of Galilee. That we're going to talk about next week more. Flowing in from the north is the Jordan River. And as Father Ernest likes to tell us, the Jordan River consists of two branches that meet, one called the Jor and one called the Dan, which makes sense to call it the Jordan River. And so if you go south of the Jordan River, south of the Sea of Galilee, it pours out and the Jordan River continues all the way along. To the east is the country of Jordan, and Jordan River continues all the way down into the Dead Sea. All right. So that's the eastern border of what I'm going to call today, unless I forget, Israel and the occupied territories, or Israel and the West Bank. Why is it called the West Bank? Because it's on the west bank of the Jordan River, which is confusing because when you get to a place like Jerusalem, if you look at that on your map that you're holding, so Jerusalem is divided into east and west. So East Jerusalem is actually west of the West Bank. So if you're going east to west, if you're going right to left, it goes the Jordan River, the West Bank, East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem, Israel, and the Mediterranean Sea. Does that make sense to you? All right. You know this. All right. So that's what I'm going to tell you. Now, you'll see Jerusalem on this map. And if you look a little south, you'll see Bethlehem. And then just a little bit more, this thing that says Herodian. That's going to come into play today. I'm not going back to this map. So Herodian. It's just south of Bethlehem. And then if you go back to Jerusalem and go sort of northeast to Jericho, just before it is something called the Wadi Kelt. And I might be mistaken, but I think that's where we visited when we went to the Judean desert. So those are the names you need to know for this map today. All right. Then I want you to turn to, and I'm not going to call these up again, but I'll say, hey, look at this map. Here is kind of a nice colorful one. This is the old city. It's a walled city, and these are roughly where the walls are with the black, you see the black squiggly lines all around? That's like right here, those are the walls of the old city. And what else is there to say about that? It's divided into 4 quarters. The Christian quarter, the Muslim quarter, the Jewish quarter, and the Armenian quarter. Now, does that mean you can't intersperse people in there? No, they go all over, and there's different kinds of people everywhere. But there are certain things, like in the Muslim quarter, the Dome of the Rock, the Western Wall, and the Jewish quarter, Church of the Holy Sepulchre, this thing that looks like a little pig or something. I don't know, a little dinosaur. That's the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And then the Armenian quarter, which has the Armenian Patriarchate. That's like a cathedral and a school. All right, so that's the quarter. The Damascus Gate, which is here at the north, that's the gate that we came in and left the most. Because if you look at your other map, the big one on the back side that looks like a Google Maps kind of thing, I've circled a few things, and at the top middle, it says St. George Hotel, Jerusalem. And I circled it. That's where we stayed when we were in Jerusalem. And if you see that I've made a few arrows pointing down a road, that's Nablus Road, and it heads to Damascus Gate. And that was how we pretty much all the time got into the old city. All right. So that's what that is about. I'm not going to bring up the other map just now. And now we will begin. Are there any questions yet? Because no questions is okay. Don't worry. So back to my Facebook posts. Day 1, actually day 0. Here is your fearless. Wait, hang on a second. We're also zooming this. So let's see. How do I do enter full screen? Oh, well, you can see, right? That big old face, big nose. Okay. So I left San Francisco Airport, landed at Tel Aviv Airport, 13.5 hours nonstop. It was actually easier than I thought it would be. And then there were people there to meet us, and they took us in a van to Jerusalem, which surprised Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, 45 minutes at night anyway. And so we stayed at a place called, well, let me see. Do I have a picture of that already? Yes. This is the St. George's Cathedral kind of compound. This is an inner courtyard with a beautiful little pillar. Directly behind that is St. George's Cathedral, and the spire, I believe, is also part of it. And then over here to the left is the Pilgrim's Guest House, and that's where we stayed. But over here somewhere is the home of the Archbishop. He lives there. And then a little further, but still within the same kind of compound, is St. George's College, where you can go and take 2-week courses, or I don't think you get like a degree from there, but you can take long-term classes. I had a friend from seminary who was there at the same time that I was at the Pilgrim's Guest House. I hadn't seen her since 2008. So we had a good reunion. She had her own pilgrimage going. So here's a nice courtyard view at night when we got there. And there it is again. And I'm just going to go on through the photos. I may skip a few. They had this beautiful little lounge where you could have drinks and hang out. And it's the sort of thing where you go and you're like, I'm going to be there. I'm going to spend so much time there. I never once sat down. So there you have it. But it's pretty. And then in the back are these gardens, beautiful gardens. We ate out there sometimes and people congregated. Very pretty. And there's just this is from the Pilgrim's Guest House through the glass doors into the courtyard view. Now, how many of you have been there before to this particular place? All right, just, oh, lovely, good. Now, how many of you been to the Holy Land before at all? Okay, that's the same people. All right, terrific. When in Jerusalem, stay at St. George's. So it's an Anglican cathedral, right? And you know Anglican, I'm not going to go in. Anglican umbrella, Episcopal underneath, not getting wet. Okay, that's just the room I stayed in the first night. It wasn't as nice the other nights, but I'm not complaining too much. Okay, see, you've already gone through day 0. Now, here is the first day. As I say, let's see, let me make this happen. All right. Oh, by the way, in case you don't know this, almost all Christians who live in the Holy Land are Palestinians. So that, for some reason, that was hard for, because I guess I think of them as Muslim, right? But think about it. Christians in the Holy Land would not be Jews. They wouldn't be Muslim. There aren't a lot of white folks there, not a lot of Mexican Americans. So they're Palestinians there and they're Christian. So most, what's my little phrase I think is clever. So the services were like in Arabic and with a little bit of English here and there. So not all Palestinians in the Holy Land are Muslim. Fact number 1. However, most Christians in the Holy Land are Palestinians. That's right. All right. So the other thing I'll say is, you know, how things are named is always political, or often political, and I still don't have it down. So when we say Holy Land, it's kind of the safe one. You don't get into too much trouble, except people will say, well, you're not pointing to the reality of the situation. But what can I say? People call it Israel and Palestine, Israel and the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, the Golan Heights, Israel and the occupied territories, which feels political, but is kind of true, right? And so there are all those different things. There's also the Western Wall, which they used to call the Wailing Wall. But I think the Israelis, the Jews, don't like that because they like to say it's the Western Wall of the old temple. And we still remember that old temple. So we're calling it Western because that's sort of still our land, even though it's now occupied by a Muslim mosque and center and other things. So far, so good? I'm so glad you're sitting here. So you understand what the Western Wall is. It's the sort of the remaining wall of the temple that was destroyed by the Romans in the year 70. So it's kind of, and it's the most sacred site to Jews. It's kind of the last remnant, if you will, physically. But so they don't call it the Wailing Wall anymore, although you can still wail and you can leave notes with prayers in it. Yes, Robert.
Is there a lot of security around?
I mean, yes, there is. I was surprised there wasn't more. When we first got there on a Friday and I went to the Western Wall, which I'll show you in a sec, they didn't let non-Jews down there to kind of go because they were kind of having their thing, which is fine. And there were certain times of prayer, the Temple Mount, which has the Dome of the Rock, Muslim, that it was closed to everyone but Muslims. So there was security around, but I didn't feel it as heavily. And it felt a lot safer than I thought it would. In fact, I felt pretty comfortable even at night. So that's what I will say about those things. So this is Damascus Gate. Remember I told you about it? It's the one we went through. It sort of looks medievally. Don't ask me for facts. It was built sometime in the past. And when you go into the Damascus Gate, let me see if I can. So I go in right in here, all festive. There's a few stalls, and I go in, and there's a few more markets, trinkets and things. You can buy stuff. Oh, well, they have a nice little market, a little outdoor flea market. I can't wait to get to the old city. Well, about half a mile later, I'm still seeing all the market stalls. I'm like, when do I get to the old city? And finally, and of course, I wanted to look and buy everything, but the moment you look, they see you and they say, oh, my friend, come in. And oh, they are so good. Yeah, like I was told you could actually just sort of do this with your eye and they see it. Boom. So, good and bad. You can't really browse, but so then I finally kind of came out onto the western wall or somewhere. I thought, well, here's the old city and let me find my situation. So I go and lo and behold, I'm halfway through the old city already. So a lot of it is those markets. It's not just a farmer's market, or it's not just a flea market. It's part of the city. It's part of the life of it. It's part of the kind of tumultuous buying and selling and things to look at and stuff. So it grew on me. It was pretty wonderful, actually, after a while. But that's the old city now, and I'll talk about that later when you walk the Stations of the Cross. You think of the Stations of the Cross as being out in the wilderness with like desert and stones, and here's Jesus sweating, but it's like souvenir shop is station number 1, and station number 2 is I don't know, restaurant or something. So it's all mixed in. Okay. So did I say what I wanted to say about that? Yeah, and they're all little alleyways, you'll see. Great. So, spice shops, right? Isn't that pretty? They make a pyramid with all the different spices. And I think I saw them taking a scoop. It's apparently a mix of spices. So you take a scoop out of a pyramid, and although why would you, it's so pretty. Did you ever see them scooping out the pyramid? So that's a nice blend, but look how pretty they make it look. So there's all kinds of things to look at. This is the Western Wall. And it was, I don't know what time, I think it was a Friday. There were a few people there. We weren't allowed to go down. There's this platform here, and then there's a ramp which you can go down on. We did that later. All right. So here's Simon of Cyrene had the cross imposed on him. That's the 5th station. Just happened to be a little doorway there, and I saw that. All right. Here's what it kind of looks like, except it's not as crowded there as it usually is. Through the old city. Here's a little video, because there's a call to prayer like 5 times a day, right? And it sounds something like that.
Behind all those are the residences.
Oh,
So that's just the street.
hang on. Okay. Yeah, so there are people live behind all the kind of stalls and stuff. See, now I didn't know that. Of course, they have to live somewhere in there. So what I will say, and you probably know all this already, but back in the day, so call to prayer 5 times a day. These calls to prayer, some of them were like 2 minutes long. So I thought, are they actually praying, or are they just calling you to prayer? But I don't know the answer. But they used to be sung by what was called a muezzin, Muezzin. So it was a man chanting, hey, come to prayer. Very beautiful. And they would go up to a minaret, a tower, and from there chant the call to prayer. So now times are such, they're all pre-recorded. So it's a little, the mystery is taken out a little bit, but it's still pretty haunting, especially if you hear one at night. And I love them. I don't know what they're saying. They might be saying, hey, Joe, hey, Susie, come on and pray. But it sounds so like it kind of grabs you. So you'll hear a couple of those as we go. And I find them beautiful. I think even if I lived there and heard them every day, 5 times a day, I would love it. So there we go. And my very first day, I found Jesus. Look at that. So doing his thing. He was shopping. So so there we go. Sorry, he was there. I didn't plant him there. So there's a minaret. And see, they used to go up on these little railings and such and sing. And there's a beautiful symbol, the crescent moon. This is a Muslim cemetery just north of the old city off of Damascus Gate up there. I wandered in and it was very quiet and peaceful and lovely. American Fried Chicken. Not longing for home, but there it is. And then they have the nice umbrella thing. You see this in Portugal and other places. It's pretty decorations. Kanafe. All right, I have a quote about kanafe. Kanafe is a dessert and it's served warm and you eat it warm and I commend it to you. Let's see. It is a dessert served warm. Online description: spun pastry soaked in a sweet sugar-based syrup layered with cheese, topped with crushed pistachios. This version that's flat, it's made in this huge round pan, bigger than a pizza pan, this thin. They heat it up, they bring it out, they slice you a slice, and they give it to you, and you eat it, and you go pay, and the guy says, good, and you smile and nod. So, kanafe. Now, they make it in different forms. Sometimes it looks like a kind of a flaky egg roll-y thing, thready thing. This is the one I like the most. All right. There's another scene in the old city, a little emptier now. This is, okay, I'm not going to go into this too much. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre is a huge church. And it's, if you want, it's probably the holiest site in all Christendom, because within the huge church are the locations of the crucifixion on Golgotha and the tomb where Jesus died and was resurrected from in one building. So this is called the edicule, Edicule. I don't know what that means in Latin, but if William were here, he'd tell you. But it means stone building inside the bigger church, inside of which we believe is the tomb where Christ was resurrected. Now, there's always a long line, or there are nuns or people having a special service and you don't get to go in. So I never made it in. And if you wonder whether I was resentful about that, how would you feel? But that's okay. The edicule, and you see how beautiful it's within another church. Yeah, and do leave as you need to go. The happy and sad oranges asked to have their photo taken. And then again, here's the guest house with the places I was going to hang out in and never did. Oh, they had Turkish treats and I had to try one of each. So there we are. They were only $1 a piece. And so that's the second. Actually, that's the first day. All right. Y'all doing okay? Good. Now let's see. Did I miss anything? Oh, yeah. Okay, here we go. So here things get a little more interesting. So we were there and it was Pentecost, Feast of Pentecost. So this is, oh gosh, this is the Most Reverend Hossam E. Naum, the Anglican Archbishop in Jerusalem. He's the head honcho of the whole diocese. And the diocese is also the province. There's something, but let's just call him bishop right now, Archbishop. So there he is. He's younger. People are excited about him. But he celebrated at Pentecost. Now, the thing is, because it's a big day in the church, the birthday of the church, all the different churches, all the Anglican churches from the area all came together for one service. So it was kind of packed. It was in Arabic, but the bulletins had sometimes the songs transliterated so you could see the pronunciation of the words. So I got to sing the Lord's Prayer in Arabic, which was really, it was nice. It was nice to do. I keep looking at you. So here it is. Here's the Archbishop. And there was clergy from other churches who came along. I believe this guy might be the one from Nazareth we see later. Not sure. And it's pretty full. It's not that big a cathedral. Okay. So then we went to a place called Mount Scopus, which I did not put on your Google Maps map, but is way up in the northeast. You see the top right, Brigham Young University, Jerusalem?
Yeah.
So just north of that, I know. Hey, they get around. Is Mount Scopus. And so we took a bus ride up there to look back on the city. That's east of the old city. All right. So when we went up there, so here's the thing. You go to Mount Scopus and you can look to the east towards the Jordan River, towards the Dead Sea. And some of these photos will be of that. Then we went to another hill near there where you could look west towards the old city. Did I say that right? You go up and you look east to the Dead Sea and the Jordan. And then we went to another place where you could look west to the old city, the Dome of the Rock and everything. But it's all kind of over here. Looking this way, and then that way is the Dead Sea and such. All right. So we came upon these two boys, they're Palestinian, they had a little horse. I think they came out to try to raise some shekels. Hey, we're going to show you our horse, etc. But the horse got a little unruly, and we had some elderly folks, and so we're like, you got to stay away. It got a little harried, but they were, they were showing off their horse. And sure enough, yeah. Can you imagine that horse about 2 feet away from you? And you've got a cane. So but they meant well. There we go. He's good, yeah. So this is a view to the east towards, it was a hazy day, you didn't see the Dead Sea, but there we go. And I'm gonna call that a sort of suburb of Jerusalem, though I don't think that's quite how it works. There it is again. And there,
That's one of the settlements, by the way.
it's a settlement?
Yes.
Oh,
That right there. They're very modern. They're not tents and things, 30 to 50,000 people on Palestinian land.
right. So when you hear about the Israeli settlements in occupied territories that they're not supposed to be on, it is, you're right. It's not little tents they've set up. It's like these complexes. This actually, I show one later, and it actually looks like it might be this one. I just didn't know it that day yet. So thank you. So here's a little detente between the Jews and the Palestinians. Here's a little Jewish boy, he's got the payas, the little curly locks, and his sister, I think they wanted to talk about the horse and pet the horse, and they're the boys, and they're hanging out. They got along pretty well, but then they left. So thought I'd take a picture of that to prove it can happen. And there's Iyad and Mark Stanger. They're very good old friends. And there's Ricardo horning in on the action. And there he is with his cute hat. Look at that dashing fellow. So there we are. And then we went to the other hill and looked west. And so this is the old city, and there's the Dome of the Rock, which is not a mosque, but a cultural center, part of the Temple Mount. I'm going to figure that out and tell you next week.
It's a mosque.
It's also a mosque because there's the Al-Aqsa also. 2 mosques. Okay, so here's this is obviously the most, it sticks out the most in the landscape of the old city. Okay, so there it is. And there's me pretending I'm a prophet looking on Jerusalem. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets. I even tried to say it. It was kind of goofy, but somebody took my picture. So I wept like the chicken gathers the hens, or the hens gather the chicks. That was me weeping for Jerusalem. Okay. And here's where I want to live. Always. But there's health food at the Pilgrim's Guest House. I couldn't believe it. Healthy corn and salad and, I don't know, eggplant something. But I ate it and it was delicious. So that's another day. Look at you guys. You're going so fast. All right. Did I miss anything? Oh, yeah. Okay. Nope. All right. So that was what we called day 2. Now day 3. So we met with the Archbishop in his nice home. He was a good guy. He, I have a friend who thinks you really need to be more political as the Archbishop, and he's not. He's more of a kind of middle of the road guy. But he was very smart and very gracious, and he let us meet with him for half an hour. And this is the whole group. This is Helen and Amy and Evan and Stan and Diane and Rico and the Archbishop, Daniel, Sarah, Petrina, Mark, and Tom. What's that?
What nationality is the Archbishop?
He's Palestinian. Oh yeah, and they've had Palestinian archbishops for a while now, like the last 3 or 2.
Yeah, it used to be one of the favorite things of the former bishop there, Ricardo. What was
Ricardo?
No.
Oh.
He'd be asked, when did your family become Christian? He said, at Pentecost. The original. And when did your family become Christian? 1642?
Exactly. So yeah, the people who lived there were obviously the first Christians. And lo and behold, Palestinians are not the ancestors, but the other thing.
The originals.
The descendants, thank you. So here we are meeting with the Archbishop early in the morning. And then we are going off to a place called Herodian, remember, south of Bethlehem. And I happened to see this shepherd. I thought, well, that's old timey looking. And so I took that picture. There's the sheep. There's a nice minaret. Sweet. So Herodian, I'm sort of not sure why we went there. It's just, it's interesting, but well, I'll talk about it. I'm not gonna judge. So the remains, so the Herodian is one of five. Herod the Great had 5 palaces. Herodian was one of them. I'll name them all later. I'll name them all now. Actually, I see it here. So here's remains of the palace, and then also up here. And so you see it was up on a hill. So there was Masada, was one of the palaces, which you've heard about, because that's where the Jews made the last stand at some point against the Romans. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. Masada, the Jerusalem palace, the Jericho palace, Caesarea Maritima, and the Herodium. So Herod had 5 palaces. He really needed.
He was buried at this one.
He's buried in this one. Yes. So this is where we went. There's a view of a minaret and viewing out from the top when we got there. There's a little theater. He would have guests and would have them entertained here. And so that looks out on the everything. And here's another vista from Herodium. We had to climb some stairs. And so I took a little picture looking back to kind of mark the occasion of having exercised. So, sorry. This is one of our folks, Amy, and she's pointing out some of the, frescoes, I guess they are, in the palace, still there. You'll see a little cross. This is, well, it's a cross, isn't it? I forget what so there was someone Christian was there and put the cross in. We'll leave it at that. Now I forget, I don't know what the order is. So it was Herod the Great, but at some point this place also served as a synagogue when there were revolts. And I'm going to read this to you real quick. Synagogue from the time of the revolts. The reception hall apparently began to serve as a synagogue as early as the Great Revolt of the Jews against the Romans, 66 to 71. It was also used as a synagogue during the Bar Kokhba Revolt, 132 to 136. The rebels built benches around 3 walls, and so they made it a synagogue. And you'll see here, this was the dining hall of the palace became a synagogue. And I don't know if this is here on purpose, but it's like an oil derrick / Hanukkah lamp. Interesting, repurposed. And here's the whole kind of grounds of the palace up above. It's pretty interesting. There are levels, like the theater is lower down. This up here, they're apparently renovating. This was his Herod's residence, his kind of bedroom and such, which of course he'd never walk up there. He'd be carried up there. So he didn't have to sweat. But apparently they're renovating it to make it look like it used to. But here's the whole thing. And this is where the synagogue that I just showed you was. We went down into cisterns and looked around. Then we went to a lunch nearby in so this is run by a Bedouin family, and they cooked our lunch in an earthen oven. They heated it up to over 500 degrees. They slide the food in, and then they seal it with mud and cook it for 45 minutes. And this was the nice guy there. It's an old way the Bedouins cooked their food. And so this is a practice. They don't do it every meal. It's kind of a special occasion or when the tourists come, I guess. So here's all the food with a gentleman. And here he is. I don't think so. Oh, are they? Okay, sorry. So it's pretty fearless. He knows what he's doing. Ooh. Probably. So then there's a little 500 to 600 degrees inside. And then he's got the mud. Yeah. And he's sealing it up. Isn't that funny?
45 minutes and 600 degrees.
That's what I'm told. Well, you'll see later. So that's that. And so that oh, Janet. Very nice. Well done, Janet. came back and served you well. So while we were waiting, and this happened all the places. Now, usually these pilgrimages have like 20 to 36 people on them. We only had 10 because it was kind of last minute. But they they line up the table with all these little dishes. It was great. And they were pretty healthy. This soup was delicious. I remember, I'm just telling you about the food. The soup was delicious. I don't remember what it was. And this kind of mint lemonade was fantastic. And so there's the food, and it's coming out now. And there it is on my plate. It was delicious. So there you go. All cooked in one place. So then we went back to Jerusalem, but they have these signs all around. And so remember Eod, you saw the photo of Eod. So his son Rami now kind of took over. And when we went to meet the archbishop at his house, so Rami was now our guide for the rest. And he pointed these out and he said, so there are there's like A, B, and C territories. And one of them is run by Israelis and one by Palestinians, and one is a mix of some sort. So apparently, the Israeli government puts these signs up in 3 languages. This road leads to Area A under the Palestinian Authority. The entrance for Israeli citizens is forbidden, dangerous to your lives, and is against the Israeli law. So there's a little neighborliness for you. And what Rami pointed out is, that kind of makes us feel bad. Here we are, maybe we could be friends, but this doesn't help. It's like saying, oh, this is an awful neighborhood. Don't come in here because you'll be hurt. And then make it against the law. Actually, it says to actually go in if you're Israeli. We had a little more passage, obviously, because we weren't either. But it's a little, it's a bummer, doesn't promote care. And in fact, I did have some Jewish friends when I was said, they're like, where did you go? Or where are you going? I said, oh, mostly in the West Bank. And you are? Oh my gosh. Also the Damascus Gate. They're like, so I was at last night, we saw the moonrise. You were there at night? Oh my God, it's so dangerous. And there were like families and kids, and they were still selling some of the sweet treats you want at the middle of the night. So, there we are. Perception. This is the Har Homa Israeli settlement. And this, like Father Ernest said, it looks like kind of really nice Miami kind of things being built in the occupied territories and cause of much consternation. Now, you don't need me to tell you about that, right? Because you know what the story is. They're not supposed to be building stuff there because it's an agreement, but there they are. And who's going to stop them? And I won't get too political. Father Ernest has got a look on his face right now, though.
All done with American tax dollars, by the way.
Yeah. That's what I didn't say, but yeah. So, and then we went to a place that is, and I just have to say, so this is where the Last Supper took place, or it was somewhere like it and somewhere near it, maybe. So for me, and I'm such a bad Christian, despite what I said in the sermon, I want Jesus's, initials on the wall. Like, here's where we ate, that last time. Yeah, Jesus was here.
That's new, by the way. And that's fake.
It's fake?
Yeah, it's new.
So there's a different Last Supper room?
Very different place. Yeah.
See, there you go. So I was right. But even the other one, the old one, isn't necessarily the place. So here's where we will say the Last Supper, because it sure wasn't very crowded. You would think a lot of people would go there. I do want to point out the nice mural up here. There's the rooster foreshadowing Peter's betrayal. And there's Judas with his head down, a little money bag or something behind his back. So there you go. And so we were it was a Syriac Orthodox church, I believe. This is in Jerusalem in the old city. And it is supposedly Saint Luke, who wrote the Gospels, was the first iconographer. And his first icon was of Mary and the baby Jesus. This is purportedly that very icon. Now, again, I don't know. But it says here, the Virgin Mary from Life by St. Luke, so it must be true. And I'm sorry. These pilgrimages, especially to the Holy Land, are as much spiritual as factual. And so what you bring to it and what you allow it to do for your faith is just as important as, Jesus was here. I'll say that. So they had a beautiful altar in that Syriac church behind this curtain, and we got special permission to have the curtain open so we could see it. So everybody, they opened it, oohed and awed, but I was taking pictures of the icon. And I said, well, I'll have time to do that. Well, by the time I turn around, they closed the curtain. So I don't know what's back there. So now I have to go back to Jerusalem. So, but they have a nice curtain. All right, that's the Syriac church. It says, this is the house of Mary, mother of John, called Mark. Mark, who wrote the Gospels, Mary's house, mom. Here it says, now the writing is on the wall here with the translation. So I don't know, again, is it real? I don't know. But, why not? Okay. So this story, I'm going to screw up, but I'll do my best. So the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, this huge church, right? There are 6 different denominations that have charge of the different chapels of it, the little areas, and they don't get along so well. To put it mildly. There is, I'll have the names later in the presentation, but it's basically like Latin Catholics, Greek Orthodox, Copts, Syrians, Ethiopians, and Armenians, maybe. So they have 6, and they each have their own chapels, and it's like, so there's this ladder, and the story, you're going to know this better than I am. Let me tell it, and then you fix it. So this is outside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. My understanding is you cannot touch or move anything if it's on anyone else's kind of property or else. So this immovable ladder has to be immovable because apparently it rests on a ledge that one group runs or owns, but it's at a window that another group owns. And apparently overnight it was moved over here to this window, and it was a scandal, and it was in all the papers or something. And so what happened and who did that, and on and on and on. And my understanding is that a little later it was moved back by some mysterious person. Now, what really happened?
That ladder was deteriorating. And so it took them 10 years before they agreed there had to be the ladder there. So no one knows what it's for or why, but they had to put it there because that's the way it was. And from 700 plus, they've had this agreement. And so there are certain chapels that are absolutely deteriorating, but they won't give permission to fix it. So it's that kind of stupidity that's going on sometimes.
Yeah. And the other kind of great but not great story about the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is none of the 6 denominations can agree who should hold the keys to the whole place. So they're held by a Muslim family. And the same family through the centuries. I mean, they have a card, family to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And they used to have a ceremonial thing where they would open the key or open the Holy Sepulchre, but now they just kind of do it when no one's around. I know. I've got a quote about that in a little bit. Everybody okay? You doing all right? Okay, so I'm a little behind in my notes here. Give me a sec. Yeah, okay. All right. So there's the church, the entrance to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. We'll have more on this later, but it was a little crowded. And there we go. And there's me. Remember I brought you those candles? Because I am good to you. I'm sorry, new folks. I ran out, new folks. So, oh God, Ernest, you can tell the story, but let me tell my first part. So you can buy these bundles of candles, 33 to a bunch, and they smell beautiful. They're real beeswax. They bend and don't break. So you get bundles of 33. I got 3 of 33, and you light them from any candle in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and you are basically lighting them from the holy flame of the Holy Sepulchre. And so you light them, you blow them out, and you bring them back for your friends. And you tell them, hey, this was lit there for you by that flame. Now that flame originates every Easter vigil, Orthodox Easter, which is usually like a week later or something, right? And so Ernest, will you tell us that story again? Do you mind?
Holy Fire is amazing. And because being at St. George's for all those months, we were on the front line. And there are thousands of people in there, and they're all yelling, come Lord Jesus, in various languages. And then they have this big procession with the thumpers. Were you there for the thumpers? These are, again, Muslim people with these long poles that have been there for hundreds and hundreds of thumpers. And they go thump, thump with silver at the top and bottom. And they mean, get the hell out,
Oh.
And get out of the way for the procession coming through. And at the very end is the patriarch of Jerusalem, who is Greek. The rest are patriarchs in Jerusalem. So they come around and then they take off all his clothes. He's a huge guy until he's down to a tunic. They search him to make sure there's no way to start a fire in there. Then an assisting patriarch goes in with them. And they search him. They search the tomb to find out nothing is there to start a fire.
This is that edicule, that little stone building you saw earlier.
Which, by the way, has been cleaned about 5 years ago. Gorgeous now, but it used to be black as. It had been cleaned like 1,000 years.
Okay.
So, because they couldn't agree. So they go in there and they seal it with this huge ball of hot beeswax, so the entire thing is sealed. And then it just builds more and more and more. Come, Lord Jesus, and there's a flash inside the tomb, and then a torch is handed through a hole in the side of the edicule, and a guy takes that and runs out to a taxi, taking him to the airport in Tel Aviv, and is flown to Greece, where he takes the fire and lights the fire of Easter, and that fire is taken all over Greece by runners to celebrate Easter. It's
Yeah.
really quite amazing.
Yeah.
And I asked, how do they do that? He said, don't ask.
Right. Right. And, oh, right. But there's also a flame gets left in Jerusalem,
And then
right?
the second torch comes out,
Mhm.
and then we all light our lights from there.
Right.
It's really quite exciting. And
Yeah.
one Jewish policeman came up and said, do you believe all this stuff, Father? I said, no. So he goes and tells another policeman, he says, well, Father, you gotta believe. Coming from a Jewish policeman.
Thank you, Father Ernest. So, so presumably all of the flames that are in this Church of the Holy Sepulchre every year sort of get restarted from those holy fires. So the burnt candles I brought home have this year's fire. Okay. And this is up in the Greek. So you walk in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, you take a right, go up a few stairs. There's the Greek Orthodox chapel section, which is lays claim to Golgotha, or being built over Golgotha, which is where Jesus was crucified. And you can go and crawl in under this altar, I think it is. Yeah. And you go down and there's a hole in the ground. You stick your hand in and you're touching Golgotha. So it sounds ridiculous and it is a little strange, but it's kind of strangely moving. And it's the closest I will come to being where Jesus was crucified, that I know of. So there's Rami, and we couldn't go in for a little while. They put a ladder, but then we got in, and that's that. You're all through another day. Look at you going so quickly. Let's see if I missed anything. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, here we go. Oh, we're good. Wait, am I on the right day? Have I shown you pictures twice? Oh, right. Okay. Here we go. Fourth day, part 1. So the fourth day was there's so much going on that I have 2 parts on this one. So we went to Bethlehem. This is a view from the shepherd's field out towards what looks like Israeli settlements again, maybe? Near Bethlehem. Remember, Bethlehem is south of Jerusalem, not too far, but it's in the West Bank. So it's in Palestinian territory.
There's a huge refugee camp there, the Haitian.
Oh, yeah. See, we didn't visit any of those. Yeah. So we're going to the Church of the Nativity in Manger Square in Bethlehem. So here's a view from the shepherd's field. In that region, there were shepherds living in the fields, keeping watch over their flock by night. And visiting is allowed for 5 minutes only. So there's a little chapel of the shepherds, or what is it? Yeah, chapel of the shepherd's field. It's not that big, and because all the tourists go, you get 5 minutes each. And so we were like, we're gonna go in, we're gonna read the gospel from Luke, and then we're gonna go in and we're gonna sing Angels We Have Heard on High together. I thought, well, this will be really nice. So we go in, there it is. There's some of us waiting. We read the gospel from Luke. There's an angel statue at the door pointing towards Bethlehem and saying, be not afraid. It's very nice. And I think it actually does point towards Bethlehem. And then the group before us was doing the same thing. So it's not so unique. They're doing it in Portuguese, though. They sang it better than we did, so I didn't record us. But so apparently it's a thing. But you know, that doesn't make it any less special because there you are. And this is where the angels came. So,
Did you go to the cave itself?
no. Oh, yeah. Wait, what?
There's a cave. There's a cave outside there that's very ancient. And that's where I got one of my cacti. I snipped off one and brought back. And
What is the cave of?
it's just a cave, and yet you go in there and they have mass in there occasionally. And it's a lovely place, and it's been there forever. I mean.
Is it right there where
Yeah,
where
it's
this
down-
is?
it's Down the hill. and-
Yeah, we saw into those. Yeah, we didn't spend a lot of time, but we looked in. Thank you. So in this Chapel of the Shepherd's Field, there are 3 different murals. And the first one is of the angels coming and everybody's afraid, they're flipping out. And here's that dog and he's bark, bark, bark. And who is it? Bark, bark, bark. And then the second mural, they go to see Jesus. Here's the Christus Rex symbol and the angels and the baby and everybody, the cows. And here the shepherds are happy. They're playing a nice tune and kneeling. And here's the dog, all nice and attentive, right? You see that? And then the third mural, they're coming back and they're rejoicing, they're dancing and they're happy, playing the flute. And the dog is barking. He's happy because he knows Jesus was born. So there, don't look at me, Janet. Look at the.
I'm looking at you.
Oh, okay. So in that, look at that happy dog. Happy dog knows. So it's nice about the 3 murals that you can see the progression in the dog, even especially.
And the Star of Bethlehem.
And the Star of Bethlehem, yes. And yeah, so the dome has a lot of little holes, you know, kind of reminiscent of maybe starlight, star coming down. And the altar has kind of supplicating shepherds underneath. Maybe they're a little scared, but they are praising God. So then, give me a moment. Yeah, this is the parking lot. So this is a separation wall near Rachel's tomb. And it's a bummer. It's one of these where there will be checkpoint. I mean, I don't know the whole thing about it, but obviously a separation wall is to keep some people out, right? And keep some people in. And so there we were, and we stopped by and we went to a shop there. Rami kept saying, oh, we're going to be making a stop here. And I have a cousin there. And my cousin sells this and you're welcome to buy or not buy. And so I came back with all kinds of trinkets, but it's okay because it was nice because it helps the economy. So this is some stuff about what goes on there in Area C, etc. I'm not going to go through this now, but I will say that there was sort of an outdoor museum. There are all these kind of, you'll see, stories and things about what goes on there because of this separation wall, excuse me, near Bethlehem.
One of the great moments of the wall in Bethlehem, a person has painted this huge dollar bill that says, your American tax dollars at work.
Yeah. So there's
some Banksy stuff too.
yes, you'll
There's a ton
see.
of Banksy stuff.
You'll see something, I don't know if it's Banksy, but I took a couple photos, I'll show you. So there are also these testimonials, and I'm going to read these to you. This one says, the wall is on my heart. After the wall around Rachel's tomb was built, I felt terrible. Nobody was walking here, only the cats and dogs. The wall creates a feeling, the feeling that it surrounds you, that you are not permitted to move. Every time, every day you see the wall. When I look outside through the window to see the sunrise or the sunset, the wall is in front of me. When I go to the wall, I feel that something closes in on my heart, as if the wall is on my heart. When I see the wall, I also feel ashamed of myself because it is created by human beings. And here's, if you know the show Rick and Morty, look, Morty, I turned myself into an illegal border wall, which is funny and not funny, right? So there we are. And then here's one called Love I'm going to read to you. My son fell in love with a girl from Jerusalem. It was difficult for him to visit her because he needed a permit, but she was able to come and visit him here in Bethlehem. He could not get permission to visit her even when she became ill. After 4 years, she died. She put in her will that she wanted my son to carry her coffin at the funeral. He tried to get a permit to do this, but this was denied. He decided to go to Jerusalem without a permit. The Israeli soldiers caught him, beat him badly, and put him in prison for 30 days. He missed the funeral. He had a nervous breakdown and was ill for 2 years. It's called Love. Dear Slim, I wrote you, but you still ain't calling. So this is an Eminem song for those of you who, oh, nobody knows. Eminem, the rapper, and it's basically talking about Trump and Israel kind of being in cahoots kind of thing. It's, you have to know the Eminem song, like cool people like me do.
People like you.
Yeah, I'm not yet. We know too well that our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinians. Nelson Mandela. Someday we'll all be free. Here's my favorite. Welcome to Palestine. It's a peace stub with an olive branch and a bulletproof vest with sights set on it. That might be a Banksy. And it's pretty intense. Stars and Bucks Cafe. And somehow they get away with it. I don't know. And there were a couple of variations in different places. We saw one in Ramallah that said something like that, like Star Buicks, or I don't even know what. So there we are. This is the Church of the Nativity. It is the oldest continuous church still in use, built in 326. Not that particular one, but on that site. So that's a claim to fame. The oldest church in Christendom still in use. So that's the entrance. And I don't know why, because it sure is small.
The reason why is that they got tired of people riding their camels and horses in there. You'll see the original door swing up.
Yep.
And they kept lowering it, and finally you have to, only people can go down there, that's why.
Nice.
Invaders used to come in with their horses.
Mhm.
The thing is a lot of places, even in Europe, the door was always smaller, so the horses couldn't.
Nice. Thank you. So it's a little crowded in there, but there we are. Oh, I had a nice we were waiting in line. There was a group from Mexico and I was talking Spanish and they were great. They were so excited. You know, I'm all cynical. I don't know if this is really where Jesus was born, but they were almost singing songs. And, you know, you learn from other people's faith that you need to kind of get over yourself sometimes and just kind of let it wash over you. Or not, that's fine. But there you go.
I don't know if you got a picture of it, but on down 6 feet is Constantine's original floor, mosaic floor. You can see that. We usually don't have that many people there, so
right.
we're able to go and see that before we go down to.
I don't think I did. No. There's some nice mosaics, beautiful up on the wall. I'm just going to kind of breeze through these a little bit. Pretty. So you go down, and I think I remember this right. So kind of behind the altar, there are two ways to go down below, and down below is the cave where Jesus was born. This is what we're told, right? And there's a long line, but Rami had an in with one of the guards. Now maybe this is a shtick, but we got in without having to wait in line, which was very exciting. And we had to kind of go one or two at a time, but it gets a little crowded and people line up and you go in kind of under and touch again through the hole, touch the cave where Jesus, Mary, and Joseph were, where he was born. Okay, this is what we believe. There they are crowding in. And there's me, and I was so bad. I took a photo because the guard got distracted by another pilgrim. So I went in there, took a photo, touched it. Blasphemous. And there's what it looks like underneath. 14-pointed star. You'll see the 14-pointed star. I have a little something to say about that. 14-pointed star represents the 14 generations between Babylonian exile and Jesus, as noted in Matthew 1, verse 17. It says, from Abraham to David are 14 generations. David to the deportation to Babylon is 14. Deportation to the Messiah, 14. So that's why the 14 stars. So, yep, there we go. And there's pretty candles down there. I guess it's a little more spacious than you would think. All right. Now, there was a side little roomy thing, and I didn't know what it was, but supposedly the manger was in there. I couldn't figure it out. So I just took some photos, and one of these might be the manger. That might be it. I don't know. It's
No, it's behind there, the left.
There?
Nope, it's on back.
There?
No one pays attention to that.
See, that's why
we
you
never say Jesus is born here. We say this is where we remember Jesus' birth, since we have something. So it's got to be a holy place because of the remembrance there.
Did you hear that?
Yes.
That's true for most of the places. You can't prove that it happened there, but there's been people worshiping there for that purpose, or as far as we know, since the year 326 in this instant. And so that's what you believe. Okay, so there we are. Then here's upstairs again, some hanging lamps. I believe that the site is overseen by Greek Orthodox, Armenian, and Roman Catholics, and especially, I don't know about Greek Orthodox, but Armenians certainly like their sanctuary lamps. So you got a lot of them. The Greeks do too. So there's a bunch that's very pretty. I want to read you something. Oh, so apparently this church was not ransacked by the Persians in 614, which apparently they came and ransacked, because they saw a mural in the church that depicted the three wise men dressed in the Persian apparel of Zoroastrian priests. So they saw that and they're like, yeah, they're one of us. We'll leave it alone. Does that make sense to you? You see what I'm saying? So next time you think those vestments are so stupid, when you see me wearing something, they saved this church the vestments, what the priests were wearing. That doesn't really connect, but that's okay. Here's a beautiful door. I forget where it was to, but they're singing and they're happy. Here's more ornate crowds. So outside, this is Saint Jerome. This is a hierarchical photo. Saint Jerome, Virgin Mary, Jesus. But Saint Jerome, let me tell you about Saint Jerome. In the next photos, it says Saint Hieronymus, or Jerome. He translated the Bible from its original Hebrew, the Old Testament, and Greek, New Testament, into Latin, which we know as the Vulgate translation, or the common language, the vulgar language of the people, the Vulgate. So the cave or home where he did this work was right next to the Church of the Nativity. So that's why you got St. Jerome in the mix here. His translation, he began in the year 383. It's said that Jerome was not much fun to be around, especially with that skull always under his foot. So, and a lion and what's that? I don't know. He was obsessed with death. I don't know.
Did you go into the Latin section down below in the caves?
No, man.
That's where we sing "O Little Town of Bethlehem" and read the story of the birth.
Oh, okay. I don't think I want you to talk anymore.
And that's where he tried, in one of the places.
Oh, that's where Jerome was.
Yes.
Yeah. So, say what you will about Jerome, but he did an important thing, super important, translating it into Latin, which became the everywhere, and Constantine, and there we have it. So here we are. But yeah, thank you. I'm joking. I want you to always say those things. It's just gonna make me want to go again with you. So here's Mark. He's pals with the security guard. He's gone so many times. And the security guard, he didn't know me, so he didn't like my taking their photo. But then we said hello later. Yeah, it's a scowl. There's Stan and Rami. Rami's our tour guide. They were great. Here's a little thing of Bethlehem. Okay, so that's that day. You all doing okay? Oh, good, because we're almost done. We're on to the fourth day of the pilgrimage, part 2. And then there's only one more after that, and I'll leave you be. Here we go. Here we go. What is this? We went on the second half. So we went to Church of the Nativity. We're in Bethlehem. Then we go have lunch at Ruth's restaurant in Bethlehem. And the pilgrimage, they have different places they go. And it could be that Ruth's is like the tourist's place to go, but it was always delicious. We go there, and then later on we go back to Jerusalem. I'm giving you a preview. Went to Oscar Schindler's grave, and then I walked the ramparts, one half of it. I'll tell you as we go. So there we are. That's something. And then here's the food. Now I'm just going to give you a little lineup here. So these are pickle slices, falafel, pita, chicken shawarma, some sort of spicy sauce, some yogurty cucumber yum yum, marinated carrots, tuna salad, hummus, beets, green pepper something, corn yum yum, shredded purple cabbage, and eggplant delight. So all of that, isn't that crazy? And then I think they even brought out more food. They brought out, I don't know, maybe they didn't. The chicken shawarma was already out there. So, we got to eat this at lunch. So that was nice. Oh, we saw KFC around there. And as Rami said, it stands for Kentucky Fried Camel. I didn't go. Coincidentally, though, we had KFC last night at our coffee hour, and I did this first presentation. So people were actually biting into KFC while they saw this. It's always Christmas in Bethlehem. So even Santa gets a spot. There's Father Mark. This is just, we're back in Jerusalem. This is the Notre Dame Jerusalem Center, which some pilgrims stay at. It's pretty snazzy looking. And you'll see that later. Not today, but next week. I Heart Jerusalem. Now I'm back in Jerusalem. I'm walking around. There we are. That is David's tower, David's something or other. These are sorry, Father Ernest. I don't remember. But these are the walls, right? These are the old city walls, one side of them near the gate whose name I forget. Is there a David's gate?
David or Jaffa, I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe Jaffa. So oh yeah, if you look on your little map, no. Actually, you don't need to look at your map. So I walked over to, I found out someone knew that Oscar Schindler was buried, and you all know who Oscar Schindler was? All right. Does anyone, well, I don't want to shame you. Does anyone, I'm going to pretend someone here doesn't know and read you this. It's from Wikipedia. Oscar Schindler was a German industrialist, humanitarian, and a member of the Nazi Party, who is credited with saving the lives of 1,200 Jews during the Holocaust by employing them in his enamelware and ammunitions factories in occupied Poland and the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia. So he was a Nazi, but he saved these Jews by employing them in his factories and keeping them safe. And they kept adding, Schindler's List. He kept adding people and saved. And his was it him who said, I wish I'd saved more. I could have saved more. Like even then he just felt awful because he couldn't do more. So there's birth date 1908 to 1974. And then there's some writing in German here that says, the unforgettable lifesaver of 1,200 persecuted Jews. And people leave stones there. And then underneath is a little thing, last act of grace for a righteous among the nations who put his life at risk in order to save Jews in the Holocaust. So that was something. People don't seem to know that he's there because I don't know, people on the street anyway, because I got lost and I kept asking, and the ones who knew English didn't know. So there we are.
People bring rocks when they visit a grave. They'll bring a rock and put it there as they're having been there.
If you, yes, Evan DeSantis, young man who died, son of Cindy and John DeSantis in our garden, often has little rocks and stones around. It's a memento. So you'll see these kind of slabs here and there in memory of Shlomo Meyer Cohen, who was murdered at this very spot on 18 February 1989 in a stabbing attack. Now, these are Jews, these markers. I'm going to guess they don't have these for Palestinians in Jerusalem, but you'll see, especially when we went to Ramallah later, they have their own way of honoring martyrs as well. But so they're not everywhere. I came across maybe 3 or 4 of these. You don't need, so I went on the Ramparts Walk, which is basically, well, what you're seeing here, the walled city on the inside. They built this, I guess it was there because soldiers and such, right? And so you can take the walk. You can do 2 parts. You can do it. You don't need to know. It starts, you can do the northern part or the southern part. And the northern part's kind of more interesting. So I did the northern part this day. And it was really great because even though it was hot, it was a way to be up above the fray of the city and the crowds and to see things and have meditation time and get exercise in all at the same time. So there's some views. So West Jerusalem, note it's really pretty and it's landscape and has these stone buildings, very kind of, very lovely. And then they have these little signs of, these are the different people who kind of control Jerusalem at different parts. I took a few photos. This is the Great Jewish Revolt, 66 to 70 in 3 languages. There's Jewish Revoltee guy in a statue. And I came across some Christmas trees that were down, and I'm assuming that what they do is they have them up on rooftops or all above. They knock them down until Christmas and then they put them back up, I guess, because there they are, and we were there in June. Here's a monastery, I believe. I forget who, but there it is. And there's my cute hat. Walking along on the ramparts. There's the Dome of the Rock with all, Father Ernest said people live all behind the storefronts. There's storefront, and there's all the places where they're living. And there's the Dome of the Rock. Here's my artistic rendition of the Dome of the Rock with the sky. And here is East Jerusalem. Not all super landscaped and pretty stone buildings, but lots of life going on, lots of shops and hubbub. There's Suleiman the Magnificent. He was responsible. He oversaw the rebuilding of the old city walls in 1538, and they are the ones still standing today. He was all right, and there he is, and there's the Dome of the Rock.
And by the way, when he conquered Jerusalem, he went into and met with the patriarch of Jerusalem in the Holy Sepulchre. And he said, the patriarch said, would you like to say a prayer? He said, no. He said, why? Because if I did, my people would make this to a mosque. I don't think you want that. So that was a good guy.
He was a good guy. Yeah, I heard, it must have been from you. I heard that story. Yeah, so he was good. He looks good. Soccer players, football players, if you will, as I'm going along. These are you know more than I do. This is a huge cemetery. I think it's interdenominational. Those are all headstone markers all along the hillside.
That's all Jewish.
Oh, it's all Jewish.
Valley. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. So after my ramparts walk on the hot day, I needed some juice. So I sat down in this little shop and I took a picture at the Lion's Gate. And then I just happened upon what's called the church. This sounds funny. The Church of the Flagellation. I know. It was built by the Crusaders in the 12th century, then deserted until 1838 when Franciscans bought it and restored in 1929. It's just a little church. It's part of the Stations of the Cross, but we didn't go to it, so I don't even know how that works. But you'll notice, and I'll show you in a sec, this beautiful mosaic, and it's the crown of thorns in the dome. And there's a stained glass of Jesus, flagellation. He was whipped, right? Not good. And then crown of thorns, look how pretty that is. But it's a church that commemorates that act that was done to him. And if I'm not mistaken, when they think of the Stations of the Cross pathway, this is kind of one of the places where he was beat up. This was a church right nearby called the Church of the Condemnation. I couldn't figure out what was going on, but I honestly, I got a kick out of the sculpture. So I took a picture. And then back in the Church of the Flagellation, there's a nun cleaning up, and I thought that was sweet. Take a picture. So, okay, you guys okay? Because we're almost done-ish. This was a visit to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. This little crack is what's believed to be from what emanates the holy fire. Do you know this, Father Ernest? But then how does it go to the edicule inside?
They take it out and they pass through that door on the way, and someone said the guy was stopped as he had the flame there.
Okay. So the crack is yes, that's the connection, I think. All right, so I'm going to read something to you. So I'm all Mr. Cynical, and yet I see this and I hear the story and I take my, I kiss my hand and I touch it because it's kind of what you do because you're giving reverence to a place. So here's a quote from Jerome Murphy O'Connor, professor of New Testament at École Biblique in Jerusalem. He said this about the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. This is going to be kind of a downer. So if you don't, well, I'm just going to read it to you. One expects the central shrine of Christendom to stand out in majestic isolation, but anonymous buildings cling to it like barnacles. One looks for numinous light, but it is dark and cramped. One hopes for peace, but the ear is assailed by a cacophony of warring chants. One desires holiness, only to encounter a jealous possessiveness. The 6 groups of occupants, Latin Catholics, Greek Orthodox, Armenian Orthodox, Syrians, Copts, and Ethiopians, watch one another suspiciously for any infringement of rights. The frailty of humanity is nowhere more apparent than here. It epitomizes the human condition. The empty who come to be filled will leave desolate. Those who permit the church to question them may begin to understand, though, why hundreds of thousands thought it worthwhile to risk death or slavery in order to pray here. Is this the place where Christ died and was buried? Very probably, yes. So that's what he says, and my interpretation is he's saying it's got to be real because there's so much animosity here. There's so much disappointing yet hopeful. Like, that's our faith. It's not like a big beacony shining light where there is always peace. It is in the struggle, and that's where you find your faith. And so that's my interpretation, but I like that quote. So in the Orthodox chapel, they have beautiful mosaics, and I'm going to breeze through them. And here is the sacrifice of Isaac, stopped by an angel. This one I was particularly moved by. It's the crucifixion, obviously, but look at this guy. Look at this Roman fellow. He's got a look on his face like, whatever, like, I don't even care. And the face of Jesus cares a lot. And what I wrote about this was, the bored look on the executioner's face seems to say, I couldn't give a damn about this man. While the face of Jesus cries, I couldn't have cared more for you. This is the way of the world versus the way of God. And so you choose your path. Some sanctuary lamps in that Greek Orthodox chapel, very pretty. There's stuff all over the ceilings. There's so many things to look at. Beautiful mosaics, intricate and small. Super silvery altar. Under there is where you crawl. You wait in line, you go down there, you put your hand through the hole again, and you touch Golgotha, which was moving, I will confess. And see, so there you go in. I took a picture. It was bad. It was naughty, but I took a picture. And then outside, when you go down there, there's just this place where people just light candles, and it's beautiful. And then there's the Chapel of St. Helena, which is the Armenian chapel. You kind of go across and down a few stairs, and there's Jesus. And you'll notice, I think, like, Armenian paintings are a little more cartoony, but they're really beautiful. They're colorful. And I couldn't help but notice that the chandelier thing is coming out of Jesus' belly button. Let there, I don't know. I have to make a joke. But I like the archetype, the painting. So this is Christian graffiti on a pillar in the Chapel of St. Helena. People come, and rather than saying, Joe loves Sue, they'll make a cross to show that they were there. By the way, Helena, in case you don't know, was Emperor Constantine's mother. Emperor Constantine is kind of a big deal because he converted to Christianity. ... Here we are. When he converted, everybody became Christian. That's kind of how it worked. And so then, house churches became ... cathedrals and power and majesty and etc. But Helena was his mother, and she is credited with finding the true cross of Christ. And so here she's honored with this chapel. And this is the same building, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. So there he's crucified, there he rises from the dead, and over there they find the true cross. So it's not that big a real estate situation. So then you go down some stairs from the Chapel of St. Helena into a sort of a cistern-y situation. And there's another altar down there. And here from down there, I'm looking up, and you see there's all the pretty color paintings. It's just a very haunting, lovely place. Down here is where they believe is the spot where they found the true cross, which is right here. And they had this whole thing built there. People kneel there and pray, and they stay there for 20 minutes. So you can't get a photo unless you wait like I did, and get cranky, and then pray that you be patient. So, nuns, the edicule I told you about, behind it is a sort of gift shop. I guess it's part of the same stone building. But apparently, the long lines, there's a woman, she's crawling under there. And I don't know if there's an access point to inside from there, if you can touch something. Okay, well, I was mistaken thinking, oh, she paid a few shekels and gets to kind of skip the line. But there's a little gift shop with stuff behind it. This was a side chapel with a beautiful tabernacle and this gorgeous mosaic with a little arrangement of flowers that I really liked. And in there was an altar with all these faces underneath. And there's the edicule again with the long line, beautiful, beautiful within the dome itself. And there you go. So when you first walk into the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, there's this slab of stone called the Stone of Unction. Purportedly where Jesus's body was laid after the crucifixion. And if you look back here in the murals, there's his body laid there, right? This says same Stone of Unction, all these little lamps here. And what people do, they slather it with holy oil, and you go in and you kneel down and you pray. You can, put some oil on you, and people will bring their souvenirs and kind of swipe them over the oil and bring them back.
They also, fascinating, especially Greeks in Greece, they'll bring their shrouds there and do the holy oil bit
Yes.
and rose water. And one time we went in, this one was just sobbing. And so a policeman came up and said, "Are you okay?" And she looked at us, "Is it okay if I do this?"
Oh, that was her. She was really sobbing,
She was sobbing.
but she could kind of cut it off at a moment's notice.
It wasn't happening.
No, she was really sobbing.
He asked permission.
No. But they're always there, but that's only 400 years old. It wasn't the original slab, but it's still, remember. There's one thing that's fascinating about this place, and that is that they used to do, and I'll bring it next week, I'll bring a needlepoint thing I did of it. They used a little wooden thing around it to mark the grave. And then enemies would come in and tear it down. And then 200 years later, they'd build the same thing. And finally, one of the guys came and said, "The heck with that." And he made it into a dump for all the refuge, thereby preserving the place.
Right.
So when Queen Helena came in and they told her about it, then Constantine had it all bulldozed out and got to that place where now is the grave. So it's really pretty authentic that's probably where he was buried.
Oh, thank you for that story. Did you understand that? They made it unattractive so that people wouldn't know that that's where it was.
It's a huge garbage dump.
It was a dunk.
I mean, as high as this, and Constantine came in and had it bulldozed out, so to speak.
Right.
And there it was. And they
Terrific.
just found that when they redid the edicule, and they went down and found there was that stone.
Wait, not this stone we're looking at right now.
No,
But the one inside the edicule.
The place of the burial.
Okay. I had a fantasy of all those trinkets I bought from Rami's cousins I was gonna break. It's just gotta dump on this stone and slather them around. But that didn't seem appropriate. And then here are the nice pretty lamps up above. That Stone of Unction. One more kanafe. Because I had a hard day. And there's the other kind of, I think, kanafe. It's got a thready, swirly, lovely thing. Another chant. And this is Noblest Road going back towards St. George's where we stayed. So it's all very nearby. I won't go through all of that. We'll hear another one next week. But I just love them. And back at St. George's Cathedral. And there we are.
Can you go back just a quick second on that? See that round thing at the very top
Yeah,
of that?
right here.
No, where the cross is on top on the.
Oh yeah, right here.
That is a Roman pillar with a Roman cannonball at the top.
Oh,
Original,
A real Roman.
yeah, very cool. Thank you. I don't want you to leave because I've got one more and some of the best photos are in this. So I'm giving you 5 minutes. Come on, Barry. Come on, Barry. Your TV show can wait. No, you can go if you want to. Just you're gonna hear all about it later. All right, so 5th day, part 1. Thank you for your patience. And not complaining like Barry is. So okay. Oh, Barry, we love you. Okay, so this is another 2-parter. This is just part 1. We'll do part 2 next week because that's when we go to Nazareth. So I'll just tell you, we got up at 5 a.m. to go to the Judean desert. It was early, and here it is at St. George's on the outside. But look how beautiful. And there,
That's where Bishop Pike died, by the way,
right.
looking for peace for the son's suicide.
Yeesh. So this isn't sand, it's stone, it's earth, but it's still a desert. This was when we were there. So, a quick story. So the pilgrimage people have been going to this particular place. There are Bedouins there, but there's like a gate. And so you go in the morning, they let you in and they go down and then you watch the sunrise. It's a thing that the tour groups do. Well, we got there this day and we went through and then somehow the bus stopped and we didn't know why. We were half asleep. And then the bus backs up and it goes and it parks somewhere. And Rami says, we're going to walk down. So we walked down, it's like half a mile and it's like this. So I'm thinking, I'm not walking back up there, I hope. So we go down and we have these beautiful photos and we meet some Bedouin folks and we buy some things and you'll see. And then we go. Well, later that day, I was talking to Rami and he said, well, here's the thing. Bedouin people have lived there for, I don't know, centuries, I guess, right? And the tours have been coming for at least the 25 years that the pilgrimage folks have been coming. And so they come in early. 3 months ago, an Israeli settler moved in there. And now you have to follow his rules. So he came running out and said, you cannot come in here before 6 a.m. You better not come back again. Now, we didn't know that when it was happening. We were told later. So it's that thing of like, people have lived here for centuries. They've been coming here for 25 years. Someone's there for 3 months and they get to say what goes. And what are you going to do about it? You're going to call the Israeli police because they're going to back them up. And so, you know, it's not, I went there wanting to be unbiased, but then these things happen and you realize that some people are really just powerless. You know, they can do what they want. They can tell you, no, we're closing between, I don't know, I'm not going to make conjectures, but you know, it kind of brought it home to me that there's not a lot of freedom for yourself.
Look at the Mercury News today on the inside, the first page. And it's an amazing thing about a woman who was just decried by one of the ministers of Israel because he said something really stupid, and she called him she's a very famous person. Read that, you'll understand what he's saying.
Oh, good.
Fantastic.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Wow.
Hmm?
Did you have any?
Yes. Right.
Oh, terrific. They're Muslim, I didn't know, as Father Erdis said, right? And they're like, they're nomadic-y.
Yeah, but many of them, they live in tents, but you'll see their truck there with a TV. And on the way to Jericho, you probably saw some, if you went to Jericho and you'd see them out there. No, they love to live as nomads, but they have jobs in Jerusalem.
Ah, okay. So there you go. Yeah. No, that's where they live. So here's Rami being a prophet and telling us something. There's Sarah of the desert. And, you know, so I want to tell you about, thank you for your patience. I got just one little thing. The desert is not that big actually, but it is close to the cities of the Incarnation, Bethlehem and Jerusalem. And so drew hundreds of monks out there to the desert for 300 plus years, around the year 280 to 614. Collectively, they are known as the Desert Fathers. There may have been a few desert mothers, I don't know. Many lived as hermits, but most were in isolated communities in places like this. And their sayings have been collected, and they're really cool sayings. We're going to read those someday. Check them out. The movement was effectively ended when Persian armies swept across Palestine in 614, destroying most monasteries. Okay, so Sarah of the desert, I made them desert fathers and mothers. Rico of the desert, here we are. Daniel of the desert, Evan of the desert, Katrina and Diane of the desert, and Rico again and Stan of the desert. And we had a service there in a little place. It's all already set up for it. There's some of the Bedouin kids. They sold us some trinkets after. There's Father Mark saying the service. And then there was a camel. And we were all not going to do it. But then Evan said, I'll do it. And so, of course, a few of us followed suit. So there's Evan. There's Father Rico on a camel. He looks happy. Good Lord, that poor camel. There's Katrina. There's Stan. The camel's like, there's got to be a better way to make a living. So that's that. And here are some goats and sheep, goats with a little shepherd dog there. And there's a mysterious shepherd I happened to catch on accident, walking along. Popeye's chicken. Love that chicken. And Diane sings Grace. Now she's British. She lives in Bend, Oregon. She's lovely. This is 20 seconds of your life if you hear this. Yeah. Isn't she adorable? Yeah. So then we went to Jericho, and here's the sycamore tree that Zacchaeus climbed up, or one like it. But close enough, sycamore tree. I love Zacchaeus. So there's the photo op. And then, oh gosh, there's a little more than I thought. So I'm going to say this quickly. This up here is supposedly where Jesus was tempted by Satan. It wasn't that flat back then, but it's been built up. And there's a monastery in here somewhere that you'll see shortly. Now, if you ask me why they think that's the spot, the answer that I got was something like, well, we kind of figured out where Jesus was baptized on the other side of the Jordan, and it was near here. And this is the closest wilderness to that. And you know that in the Bible, he's baptized by John and then flees into the desert to be tempted by Satan. So why would he go like halfway across Israel to be tempted by Satan when he can do it right there? So that's the reasoning. They have cable cars that you can go up to the monastery, and it's the best journey in history. It is the #1 tourism destination in the oldest city of the world that's still around. So Jericho apparently is the oldest city in the world. This cable car ride is the #1 tourist destination. Lots of caveats for that. But better is it holds the Guinness World Record for the longest cable car or aerial tramway below sea level. So I just got such a kick out of that. It's the longest cable car ride below sea level in the world. I imagine it is. Yes. So I do need to read this to you. This is the window of I'm sorry, Barry. You can, if you want, you can go if you want to. It's all right. But you're gonna miss this. So I was in the bathroom and I look out and I see this. So I take a picture of it. This is the restroom window at the cable car ride in Jericho. It offered an unexpected artistic and theological reflection as I passed water. Right. If we could just clear away the muck that keeps our soul from appreciating God's gifts all around us, what a view we would have no matter where we stood. So there you have it. So we're going up in the cable car. There is that monastery. Only 2 monks and a cat live there now. And there it is. And my joke is, oh, I forgot to get eggs at the grocery store. I gotta go back down. Anyway, there's some views. There's the cat. The cat was cross-eyed. And right. And the eye, when you look at it, it moves. One of the eyes moves and the other one stays still. It was a very cool cat. They didn't let us take pictures inside, so I didn't get photos of the little chapel and such. But this is supposedly the cave where Jesus stayed for 40 days when he was tempted by Satan. He had a picture of his mom there. And there was a mailbox. Which I don't know, but there it was. In case he wanted to write a letter. And there were some Spaniards. I'm not going to play that, but they were coming down. It was like a real climb and sweaty and warm and hot. And here these older folks coming down and they're all happy and they come down, they sit down and start singing. We're like, okay, well, this shouldn't be so bad. So we go up and we're like, oh my gosh, we're sweating. And we go and we come back down. They're still down there and they're still singing. And we have a refreshment and we go and they're still there singing. So they were hardcore Spaniards. And this woman was a great leader. She was like, no, we're going to sing this. And so they stayed the whole day. And then we're going back down the cable car. They apparently decorated some old tanks here and there from the wars in 47 or 67, I forget. And I do not recommend this mix of chips. They're peanut butter puffs and barbecue swirls. They will give you a stomach ache, which I got. No. It does. I didn't know what it was. It looked good. And then there is some vistas, and we are off to Jericho. So, I mean, off to Nazareth. That'll be next week. Thank you for staying for this long.